Hello and welcome to another book review episode. As you can tell by the way that I am dressed today, we are doing a different kind of book to what I would usually do. What can I say? The past few weekends have been so warm, I just wanted an easy read, and so I decided on reading some Regency smut, as you do. So I like the Bridgerton series, I haven't met anybody that doesn't. And so I decided that I would read them. Because it's a new author to me, I decided I would begin at the beginning. And the beginning is not the Bridgerton series. The beginning is the Splendid series, which she wrote in 1995. So this video will be a spoiler-filled, fun review of the first book in the Splendid series, entitled Splendid. And to say it was fun would be an understatement. I mean, look at all these little tabs. So we're going to go through it, we're going to poke fun at it, and even though I did poke fun of it, I did enjoy it. Let's get into the drama. So we start our tale with the main female lead, Emma Dunstan. She's an American heiress to her father's shipping company, and she lives in Boston with him. She's an only child. And she has red hair, just because the author really wants you to know how spirited and independent she really is. Honestly, you don't really have to dive deep with these characters at all. Now, she fully expects to inherit this shipping company on her father's death, and he points out that because she's a woman, of course, that won't fly, and she shouldn't get her expectations up. And instead he sends her off to go visit with his sister Caroline, who is a countess in England, and her cousins Belle and Ned, to experience the London season. And we all know that the social seasons can throw up many an advantageous match with the right gentleman and the right lady, of course. So her Aunt Caroline, who is the Countess of Worth, is organising her coming out ball, because you can't just waltz into London society, you have to have a coming out ball, because who doesn't like going to a ball? And to escape flower arranging, Emma and Belle decide that they are going to dress in their maid's clothes and they are going to go help out in the kitchen, much to the consternation of the cook. And honestly, between flower arranging and partying, I would rather go down and sample cakes in the kitchen. But oh no! They've ran out of eggs. Honestly, who's running this household? Seriously. They run out of eggs, and Emma decides that she will go out and get some. And they try to dissuade her, but she rightfully says because she isn't out yet, and she's dressed in her maid's clothes and covered in flour, that nobody will recognise her, because nobody knows her yet. You can't argue with the logic, can you? So this is our first drama. She is walking down the street, carrying a load of eggs, and she sees this rather ornate carriage pull up, and a young boy gets out of it with a little puppy in his arms. Then a cat runs across the path, the puppy chases the cat, the boy chases the puppy, and he chases the puppy right into the path of a hackney carriage that is moving too fast and will never be able to stop in time. So what does she do? The eggs go flying, and she dives in to save him. She knocks him out the way and herself, and promptly knocks herself out. Coming to, she finds herself laid in the ornate carriage, and she finds herself being stared at by a dark-haired, green-eyed, handsome man. I think the words are devastatingly handsome, because aren't they all devastating? And this is our introduction to our male lead. Of course, who doesn't like a meet cute? But our male lead is Alex Ridgely, who is the Duke of Ashbourne. And it's established in the first few lines what kind of man Alex is. He, of course, believes that she is a maid. He doesn't for one moment think that she is a high-born lady. And he is entranced by her beauty and her fiery red hair, and his thoughts immediately go to wanting her in his bed. Dear God. He was drawn to her, he had to admit it, and he wasn't sure why. She certainly wasn't his usual type, and he didn't really have a type when it came to women, but he was fairly sure, if he did, that this little red-haired thing would not be it. Au contraire! But we'll get there. But still, he could tell that she wasn't like the other women he knew, because they never are, and he was intrigued by this uncommon female. The fucking writing. Now he has all these romantic thoughts of getting her in his bed and just looking after her, because of course that's what he wants. And then he curses at himself for being such a fool and at all these romantic notions. He is thoroughly disgusted at the primitive urges that are surging within him. Jesus Christ. And what does he do when this unconscious female finally regains consciousness? They have a bit of back and forth. She's trying not to tell him who she is while she's mesmerised by his green eyes, and he is trying not to ravish her in the carriage. And he kisses her, because that's what you need in a meet cute. A unconscious female that's just coming to, and a kiss. Which she allows the kiss, but afterwards tells him exactly what she thinks of him and his hoity-toity ways. And how dare he think that he could just take advantage of her in her current state. Which fair. Now after he kisses her, his sister Sophie returns to the carriage, whose child it was that she saved, and she'd gone for more eggs to replace the ones that Emma had dropped. And she comes back to the carriage just in time so that he can keep his hands to himself. They take her back to the Blyden mansion. Now she is adamant that she can't go up the front steps and they're not to come in and say what heroic act she did, because of course she's not a maid. So she ends up going back into the kitchen, and as soon as everybody turns to her and says, "What the hell happened? You should have been here ages ago," she faints. Because of course there's a fainting after meeting a dark-haired, green-eyed stranger in a carriage who is devastatingly handsome. Isn't it always the way? Can you tell I'm having fun? Now, back in the bedroom getting ready for this ball, Belle gets this story out of Emma because she's a bit... her head hurts, which... alright, you've bashed it on the concrete and you've probably bashed it in the kitchen, so yeah, same. She gets the details out of Emma and they discuss the Duke of Ashbourne, and Belle says that he's a handsome rascal, but he is positively dangerous. Ooh. He never consorts with ladies, only women, because of course in this there's a difference. And she's heard that he's left broken hearts all over the continent and in England. The horror. The horror. He's a confirmed bachelor who says he will never marry. Au contraire. Again. And he gets invited to all the social parties, but he never turns up because he doesn't like people. And he wears a perpetual frown on his face, and he doesn't like people approaching him. He's sinfully rich and even more sinfully handsome, and he hates the social whirl. He hasn't got the patience to pretend otherwise, and he just scowls at everybody who doesn't interest him. Oh my god, he's trying to be Darcy. And Emma reiterates that she has absolutely no interest in this guy. He's just going to be one face in many, and she couldn't care less if he comes to the ball tonight or not. The romance is practically writing itself at this point, right? Now it's time for the ball, and Emma, of course, goes down a storm. She doesn't put a foot wrong, even though she's getting a migraine from cracking her head on the concrete, which nobody knows except Belle and, of course, Alex. Now, Alex shows up just to see if Meg, which was the name that Emma gave him, is actually alright. And a duke showing up to a mansion at a ball where everybody else is occupied just to see if the maid is fine just is little red flags, because his motives are entirely dishonourable at this point. Now, his friend that he brings with him is called William Dunford, and he is a staple throughout the trilogy. He's sarcastic and funny, and I like his character. So he wastes no time in gleefully pointing out where Emma is now that they've found that she's not an actual maid and she's not called Meg, and she was just probably playing dress up. And he needles his friend with his insane reaction to finding this out, because so Dunford says to Alex, "I never thought I'd see the day when the lofty Duke of Ashbourne hid behind curtains to spy on a woman." At this point, Alex is already jealous and possessive of Emma and doesn't like other men flocking around her. He already thinks of her as his property and his alone. There's so many red flags that shows up, but this is a romance. They're okay. They're never okay. So when her migraine gets bigger and she says, "I'm just going to dip out and have a lie down for a minute," he of course overhears this, and he follows her upstairs to her bedroom. She's lying on the bed and she's sort of dozing, and he just waltzes in her bedroom, shuts the door, and introduces himself. And of course she's a bit wary. She's more wary of the fact if somebody sees him go in there, or if somebody catches them in there, or if somebody sees them go out, then him actually being there. Because he's tall, dark and handsome. Of course he's allowed to go into ladies' bedrooms without permission. But once she realises he is there, she does try to make him leave, and he refuses. He even goes on the bed with her, and they share a kiss, which is glorious, until she realises what they're doing, and she says no, and he doesn't stop, only after she says no another 3 times. Now, they both establish that neither one wants to marry the other one, because he never wants to get married, and she is determined not to get married. She is going to marry somebody in America so that she can take on her father's shipping business, because that hasn't left her head yet. And they have a bickering argument, which is going to go through the whole book. There's just never a scene where they don't argue together. How can they be happy? So what Alex says about womankind in general kind of sets up what he thinks. He says, women, he explained patiently, spend the first 18 to 21 years of their lives sharpening their social skills. And when they think they're ready, they go out into the world, attend a few parties, bat their eyelashes, smile prettily, and catch a husband. The higher the title, the more money the better, and half the time the poor fellow doesn't even know what hit him. Now Emma is appalled at this. She feels very insulted, but all that she thinks is, what on earth happened to this man to make him so cruel? And she is intent on finding out and showing him exactly how good a woman can be. Now then, she leaves the room and she tells him that he should wait in case somebody comes along and sees him exiting with her. They go back to the ball and they're formally introduced and they dance. Because of course you want to dance with a fellow that just followed you up to your bedroom while you're not in a really good frame of mind and you're quite vulnerable. And then you have an argument in the bedroom and you kiss because of course you want to dance with him. Now the next day, Emma and Belle set out to go and visit Sophie. Sophie is Alex's sister, and as a reward for saving her son the day before, she gave Emma or Meg some earrings as a payment or as a token of her gratitude. Emma knows that she can't keep them because she is an heiress and she is introduced to society. And Sophie wasn't at the ball because she is pregnant and she misses her husband who is out of the country. And of course, Alex shows up at his sister's house looking a bit the worse for wear after drinking the night before, and Belle and Sophie see the chemistry in their bickering together and purposefully leave the room so that they can be alone. And they argue again about some trivial thing, throwaway comments. It's always the throwaway comments that are argued about. But they admit that they do enjoy each other's company and they can see themselves as being friends, especially as neither one wants to marry the other one. It has been 24 hours since they met. All the drama, the carriage saving, the ball, the bedroom, the bickering, it's been 24 hours. Calm it down a notch. Now it jumps to a couple of weeks later. Everybody knows that Alex likes Emma because, as one character says, he is positively stalking her. They've seen each other every day and Emma was certain that Alex truly cared for her as a person and not just some prize to be won. Still, the friendship was often fraught with sexual tension and, well, Alex did seem to enjoy stalking her. And it's at this point that everybody around them knows that they are destined for each other, that they will eventually marry. Contrary to what the actual two of them know, everybody else knows better and they're taking bets on when they will marry, before the season ends or afterwards. So they go to another ball and she is wearing a low-cut dress. Not like, it's in the style, but it's not like, it's rather risque. And she wears it on purpose to goad a reaction out of him, and boy does she succeed. Because he flips out and says that he drags her to the garden and says that she shouldn't be wearing such a low-cut dress where all the men can ogle everything that she's got. And they have another argument about what she's wearing, and they end up in a passionate embrace because if he can't control what she's wearing, then he's going to control her physical effect on him. And Emma has to stop this embrace before it goes any further because no matter how much she wants him, they just can't do it in public. Now, on their separate ways back to the party, because it's been so long and people will gossip, Emma finally admits to herself that if somebody had caught them together and they would have been forced to marry, it wouldn't exactly be the worst thing in the world. And she admits to herself that yes, she does like him, but does she love him? Probably not. but she can't be sure. So while this is going on in the garden, we learn from Dunford and Belle, who are great friends but not romantic, because they realise that they would never be a match for each other and they're much more better as friends. We find out from Dunford why Alex will never get married. So Belle thinks that Alex should find the attention of all these ladies quite stimulating, and Dunford counters with it's actually quite the opposite. He isn't blind, and it was excruciatingly apparent that most of the women who were fawning over him were more interested in becoming a wealthy duchess than they were in getting to know Alex himself. And the whole experience quite turned him off the social scene, and he went to war to get away from the women. And that's what we get. He doesn't want to marry because he thinks that women only are after his title and his wealth, rather than him for himself, and so he has sworn off women, sworn off marriage. Now on her way back to the ballroom, Emma runs into a man by the name of Anthony Woodside, and he is going to be our big bad for this romantic romp. He is an arrogant douchebag who is determined to marry Belle for her wealth and title. There's a few similar themes running through this, it's not that complicated. He finds Emma running back to the ballroom and he says, "Where's Belle?" And she basically says, "What the hell has it got to do with you?" And he says, "Well, I'm going to marry her, so when I marry her, she's never going to talk to you again." And Emma laughs in his face and says that Belle will never marry him, and Anthony throws back at her that Alex would never stoop so low as to marry an American nobody like her, and she's much too low for the standards of the aristocracy to even take note of, especially with her hair colouring being whore red. Damn. Now, back in the ballroom, Caroline announces that they have been invited to spend the weekend at Alex's country estate, Westonbert, by Eugenia, who is Alex's mother, and by Sophie, who is Alex's sister. And they are determined, they've seen the chemistry between Emma and Alex, and they are determined that he is going to marry before the end of the season because they are sick of him being a bachelor. Both Emma and Alex know exactly what they're up to, but of course they don't mind. So they end up going in separate carriages, because Alex thought that they would just be him and Emma in the carriage and they could do what they like all the way there, but thwarted again. Now, on their arrival at this house, Alex's mother suggests that Alex take Emma for a ride around the grounds to show her the countryside, and there is already a picnic made up for them to take together. So they do, and they lay the blanket on the floor and they have quite a nice back and forth, and it's quite nice to see them have a nice back and forth without any bickering and arguing. They swap stories of their childhood, about what their expectations are, and it is really quite a romantic setting, because this is a romance after all. But not only is it a romance, it is also a spicy one. So before the inevitable happens, they're getting closer, and this has been brewing for the past 11 chapters now. They start kissing and he starts undressing her, and he lies her back on the picnic blanket and explores her body, and he says that she is not to worry because he will keep his gentleman's vow of not to compromise her virtue. And he took a deep breath, labouring hard to keep his own desire in check. His need for her was painfully apparent, his hard manhood swollen and straining against his breeches, and he says that he needs to be inside her right now, just any way that he can. He can't explain it, he just needs to feel her around him. He uses his hands. That's what I'm going to say. And he feels a surge of pride as he realises that he is the first man to do this to her, and that nobody has ever touched her like this before. Dear me. Now, he keeps doing this to her, and of course she climaxes because he's just so good. But after she climaxes, she stops the whole thing. She feels very guilty about her upbringing. And of course, because genteel little ladies don't go around having romps on picnic blankets with dukes. And when they get back to the house, she feels so guilty that she runs to her bedroom, shuts the door behind her, throws herself on the bed because, oh, the drama, and bursts into tears because she realises that this man will never marry. Girl, he just fingered you on a picnic blanket on his country estate. Of course he's gonna marry you. And meanwhile, while she is carrying on in the bedroom, Alex is re-evaluating his no marriage stance, because of course he is. Now they have a back and forth bickering argument, later that evening before they go into dinner about why Emma feels guilty for what happened in the afternoon. And he tells her not to feel guilty about it at all. It was a natural occurrence between two people that are drawn to each other. However, the next morning when Emma is trying to have breakfast, she finds that she can't eat any food in Alex's presence because her stomach is so swirly, and she finally has to admit to herself that she is in love with him. Huzzah! But then they don't see each other for the rest of the weekend because something has gone wrong on the estate and he has to leave the house, and by the time he gets back, they've all gone back to London. Now, once back in London, because the drama doesn't stop in the country, Ned comes to Emma and asks for her advice and her help if possible, as while they have been away, he has been playing cards at their local club, and he now owes the evil Anthony Woodside £10,000 for playing poker, and he knows that Anthony Woodside cheated, but he can't prove it, and he has 2 weeks to come up with these funds. He knows that his parents have the money, but he doesn't want to ask them, and because they will be ashamed of him. So he asks Emma what he can do about it. And instead of saying, "Suck it up, buttercup, and go to your parents and just ask them for it," she says that she would be able to help him, but not for 6 months, because when she turns 21, that is when she can access her fortune, and it's only if she turns 21 that she can access it, or if she gets married. Woodside has said that Ned has a fortnight to come up with this cash, or he will forget the whole thing if Ned organises a tryst with his sister Belle. Now, Emma weighs up her options and says, I'm just going to go propose to Alex. I'm in love with him, and I am more or less sure that he likes me, at least cares for me as a friend, and we would get along quite well together. Now, meanwhile, Alex is still at Westonbirt, and he wakes up realising that he actually loves Emma and is going to propose to her when they are back in London. But of course, the course of true love can never run that smoothly, and we're only halfway through the book. Now, a few days after Alex returns to London, Emma persuades Ned to escort her to Alex's house because it is highly irregular for a young unattached lady to go calling on a gentleman at an ungodly hour of the morning, or at any time, really. They are in the study and she proposes to him, and even though he is in a sulk because he didn't get to ask her, he does say yes, and they have a fumble on the sofa. Now, Alex is a bit confused and asks her what prompted her to propose to him when she should have known that he would eventually propose to her. And she starts to reply not with, "Oh, because I loved you so much," or "because your physical prowess is just heavenly," and not because I fell in love with your country house. She says that she needs money for Ned. But as soon as the word money is out of her mouth, Alex flies into a fit of rage, and he pushes her off of him and growls at her to get out of his house. There is no agreement between them. He never wants to see her again, and she's just a money-grabbing bitch. And he actually says that to her, that she is a money-grabbing bitch. And he physically throws her out of his house. Now, Emma returns home in a right state, and she locks herself in a bedroom and sobs her heart out for hours. Ned can't believe that Alex refused her, and they end up spilling the whole thing to Belle, who wasn't in on the previous scheme. And all three of them come up with another scheme, which doesn't involve asking his parents for the money, which would have simplified everything. They decide that they are going to break into Anthony Woodside's home and steal the IOU for the £10,000 debt that Ned has. And to do this, they are going to formulate a plan where they are going to use Belle to distract Woodside at the next ball that night, so that Ned and Emma can go to his house and steal it back. Now, Alex, meanwhile, is wallowing in a whiskey-induced stupor of self-pity until William Dunford comes in and rudely wakes him up, saying that there is something fishy going on at the Blyden household, and it involves Emma, Belle and Woodside. Now, Alex already knows that Belle and Emma can't stand this man, and so he is instantly up and wants to know what they're doing. Man, you just threw her from your house. You have no right to know what she's doing. Now, Alex and Dunford both turn up to this ball that night, and even though Alex is determined that he's not going to show Emma one bit of consideration, for how she has treated him, and Alex asks Dunford what his thoughts of Emma are. Would she be a fortune hunter? And Dunford rightfully points out what Alex should have known already, that Emma is an heiress of her own. She has her own money. She has absolutely no reason to want to marry anybody for money or a title, because she has everything waiting in America for her. And they find that Emma is not there. Both Emma and Ned have cried off, which is suspicious. And they find Belle hanging onto Woodside's arm and looking up at him with adoration. Now, Alex takes her away from him under the pretense that he wants to ask her about Emma, and he takes her onto the balcony above the gardens. And Belle rightfully gives him a piece of her mind, calling him all the names under the sun, and refuses to tell him anything because she says that since he does not love Emma and physically threw her from his house, he has no business knowing what she's up to, because it doesn't concern him any longer. They get back to the ball and Dunford takes Belle for a dance in order to quiz her about where Emma is, and she again refuses to tell him. But he isn't as distracted as Alex is. He says that he will cause a scandal in the middle of the dance floor by forcibly kissing her and using his tongue. And Belle is horrified because then they will be forced to marry, and she knows that he does not like her like that. And so she ends up telling him everything. And of course, after the dance, he tells Alex, and they both turn up at Woodside's home to find Ned in the alleyway shouting up at a window that Emma is in the study. Now, Emma is searching for the IOU in the study, and she is dressed in men's clothing so that it's easier to move about. Now, she finds the IOU just as Alex climbs through the window and throws her out of this window, picks her up, throws her out into Dunford's arms. And Alex is so pissed at her that he drags her through the streets of London to Dunford's house, where he calls for his carriage and throws her in his carriage. He berates her, but he doesn't take her to her house, he takes her to his, and he drags her in his house and drags her up the stairs, drags her to his bedroom, throws her on the bed, and then berates her for being so stupid. She throws back at him that he doesn't trust her, and he doesn't even like her if he thought what he thought earlier that day. And they have a big blow up, and they kiss, make up, and apologise to each other and fall asleep on the bed together. And in the morning, they make love in perfect bliss. And Emma is just so happy and ensconced in his arms and just loves him so much. She is filled up with love. And this is wonderful until Alex rightfully says that he can't wait for them to be married in 2 weeks' time. And Emma flies off the handle at his high-handedness and declares that she has absolutely no intention of marrying him after he refused her, and she throws a tantrum. This causes another big argument, and he has enough of her tantrums and her arguments and her bickering, and he drags her to the Blyden mansion. This is 5 a.m. Now, once in the house, Alex shouts at the top of his voice for Henry and Caroline, Emma's aunt and uncle and de facto guardians, that he has thoroughly compromised their niece and that they should make her marry him. Henry sends Emma to her room for Caroline to talk to, and he directs Alex to the study. He tells Alex that he knows that Emma does love him and does really want to marry him, but she has a very stubborn streak. And Emma admits to Caroline that she does in fact love him, but was annoyed at him not asking her to marry him. Caroline points out that Alex had every reason to assume that Emma would marry him after the act that they had done that morning. So they come together in the study, and Alex proposes to Emma in the proper way, and she accepts, and they are married after the 2 weeks as originally planned. Ned tells her that Woodside asked for the debt, and Ned produced the IOU, telling him that he had already paid it, and why would he be asking for it again, causing Woodside to be publicly disgraced and banned from every reputable card game in London. And Ned warns her that Woodside will be out for revenge, which of course Emma just brushes off. The wedding goes off without a hitch, and the wedding night is perfectly splendid. You're damn right I said it. And that should have been the end. But no, there's another 4.5 chapters to go. Now, Emma gets bored at Westonbirt with absolutely nothing to do, and she decides to visit first Sophie and then Belle in London. And Alex says that she can only be gone for a week or two because he can't stand to have her out of his sight. And when she arrives in London, she arrives just in time to see Belle being bundled into a strange carriage and made off with, and she instructs her driver to follow that carriage, but at a respectable distance so that they don't think that they're being followed. And it turns out that Belle is kidnapped by Anthony Woodside, and those are his men that he has sent to go and kidnap her, and he's going to force her into marriage. So they end up at this village inn, and Emma instructs a footman to go and get Alex and whoever else can come and help. And she enters this inn and she disguises herself as a maid and manages to get into the room where Belle is being held. Distract the guys that are holding her, and she and Belle end up in the room that Emma has rented. The logical thing would have been for them to leave that building completely and go hide in the dress shop. But no, they stay there and say that they can't possibly leave until Alex has come for them. But of course Woodside turns up and notices that the guys that are supposed to be looking after Belle are in the bar, and he inquires about the bartender. He directs them to Emma's room, where he promptly overpowers the two women and has Belle tie up Emma and gag her, and declares that he will marry Belle at sundown. The drama! But Alex and Dunford turn up just in the nick of time, just before sundown, and Woodside drags her to the church. They wait outside the room door, and when Woodside opens it and steps out, there is a scuffle. Woodside shoots Alex in the shoulder, causing him to fall down. He then points the gun at Dunford's heart, and Belle promptly points his own gun at him and shoots him in the foot. Dunford wrestles him, and Alex shoots him in the back of the knee. They all hit the floor. Emma is going frantic. Belle unties her and uses the ropes to tie up Woodside, and it all ends with Woodside fleeing the country and Alex and Emma looking forward to growing old together. It could have just ended 4 chapters ago, seriously. So that is the end of our racy little splendid romp through the first debut novel of the best-selling author Julia Quinn. And for me, this book has 2 stars because compared to the other ones I've read, it just doesn't hold up. So if this has been fun for you, please let me know down in the comments below, and please give me a like and subscribe. If you're new to this channel, welcome. And as always, keep reading.